just a couple little things of just some logistical business. Bathrooms are down the hall. Garbage cans, I've heard, use them. And please silence your cell phones. So I'd like to welcome and thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Michelle Damas. I'm the Portland local president of SAG-AFTRA, which is Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. I'm an actress and a stunt performer, so I'm completely qualified and skilled to tackle anyone on the stage who goes over their time. That's the only reason I got the gig. So the event tonight is brought to you by the Northwest Oregon Labor Council, the Oregon AFL-CIO, and 15 unique and distinct labor unions representing workers from both the public and private sector and covering every facet of Oregon's diverse economy. The format for this evening's event will include various opportunities for candidates to address the most pressing issues facing working Portlanders, including an initial debate, stories and questions from impacted workers, as well as questions from the audience. It is important we hear from each other because while Portland continues to gain national attention for its food, culture, weirdness, and access to the great outdoors, workers in the city and the region continue to struggle. Whether it's the rising cost of housing, the growth in low-wage job opportunities, the rise of the gig economy, or the homelessness epidemic, the city and region's prosperity is clearly leaving behind much of the working class. Workers and their unions make this city work and are truly the center of every issue leaders must grapple with in the years ahead. Tonight's candidate forum will provide an opportunity for members and candidates to hear from each other about the issues that impact our city and our movement. So a little bit of logistics about the evening. The first section of the night will last 1 hour and include candidates for the City of Portland City Council positions 2 and 4. We will ask all candidates, after which we'll ask all candidates to be seated while we hear from some of our members and some personal stories of what they've experienced and some of the key issues that they're facing. And the last 45 minutes will be spent with the mayoral candidates. Each candidate section will start with opening remarks, a fast-paced debate-style section with 2 to 3 candidates being given 30-second responses to each of the questions. And will be followed by questions from the audience and 30-second closing statements from each candidate. So everyone should have received a question card when you checked in. If you did not, we have some up here on the table. And you can either flag down some of the staff. Can I have some of the staff in the room raise their hands so we can identify where you are? So you can give them your question cards anytime you need, or bring them up to the table up here. All right, so with that, we are going to begin. So I will now ask the candidates to introduce themselves. They will have 30 seconds each, and I'll be starting right here tonight, the closest to me.
Well, great. Hello, everybody. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us here tonight. I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Minka Snaps. I'm running for position 4, City Council. Oh,
thank you, Claude. I'm running for position 4. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm a longtime Portlander. I'm in this race because I love the city. I also think and have concerns about the direction our city is. Should we stand up here? Yes. Yes, okay. Here we go. I'm running for Portland. We'll continue this conversation.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to begin by saying I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize. Might not be as chipper as usual. I think what I would like you to know about me is I grew up in a union family. My grandfather and uncle founded a 3-generation general construction company in Portland. It was located in Cully, the notorious Udaley brothers. And my dad's job with that company allowed him to raise a family of 4 and buy 2 houses on a single income. And I think today he would struggle to buy 1 home in the city I was born in. I ran an affordable housing platform that continues to be my top issue, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you tonight.
Who are you? You didn't introduce yourself.
I am Commissioner Chloe Daly. I'm running for re-election for position number 4.
Good evening, my name is Sam Adams, and I want to thank you. Thank you for helping to ensure that Portland and this region's working families, whether they are union members or not, get the kind of respect and the kind of wages and benefits that you fight for each and every day. And so I want to thank you for that. I too come from a union family. If it wasn't for a widow's pension, my grandmother would not have been able to raise her 2 children, one of which was my mom. And because I'm out of time, we'll continue this later.
Good evening, my name is Loretta Smith and I'm running for Portland City Council, and I want to tell you 3 quick things about myself. I've spent the last 30 years fighting for people who are working in this community, making sure that they have a great life. 2, what I do know is that you cannot have a thriving Portland if you don't have strong unions. And 3, I am committed to protect and to expand working folks to make sure that they have what they need to be in labor.
Thank you. I'm Sam Chase. I am running for Portland City Council, and I am hopefully going to talk a little bit tonight about some of my plans for housing and homelessness, our park system, transportation, but none of those things are possible without an incredible workforce that is able to focus on excellence. And when people have living wages, and when they have benefits, and when they have retirement, they can concentrate on doing an excellent job in their day-to-day life. And so I thank you for the work that you're doing and look forward to talking more about it.
Good evening. Hello. Good evening. My name is Margot Black. I want to thank the hosts for inviting me and for all the work, rank and file folks for being out in the audience tonight. We'll try again. Okay. I am a working class mother. I am an educator. I am a renter. I am a fighter, and I am a survivor. I'm running because I love this city and because I have had to fight like hell to raise a family in it, while all of my friends and neighbors and community members and family, my neighbors and your neighbors, have been pushed out. I organize renters in their communities and to form tenant unions in their buildings. I have a proven track record of winning significant material victories in City Hall, and that's what I'm here to tell you about tonight. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Julia DeGraw and I'm running for Portland City Council Position 2. And that might sound familiar to some of you because I ran for Portland City Council in 2018 on a system change campaign in which I fought hard to gain more representation on City Council for folks east of 82nd Avenue. And back then I ran on a no corporate cash campaign and I am sticking to it. I want to make sure everyone knows that I represent the working people of the city and not corporate interests. I went without campaign finance money. I went without I chose no corporate cash before we were required after passing campaign finance limits.
Hi everybody, my name is Tara Hurst and I'm running for position 2. I've been doing a lot of work in Salem lately and I have to tell you that I'm really tired of politicians that will tell you anything they want when they want to get elected, and then once they get into office, it's a lot of excuses. So that's not what public service is about. My political ambitions are very simple. I want to move this community forward in the community that I care deeply about, and I want to move the city forward. I'm a single mom. I've been sober for 23 years, and thank you. And I really want to make sure that we are a city that's moving ahead. So thanks, can't wait to talk to y'all.
Great, thank you. So we will now move into the debate portion. I will ask questions and address the first question to one of the candidates, and then after they're completed, I will pick another candidate to answer that same question. So our question number 1 begins with Loretta. Collective action is on the rise. Union favorability is the highest it's been in decades. And here in Portland, we've seen organizing drives in unconventional places like Burgerville, Scotty's Pizza, and Grand Central Bakery. If elected, what would you do to encourage this momentum and build strong unions in Portland?
What I plan to do, if elected, is to make sure that workers' rights are expanded and their benefits are expanded in a way that we have never done it before in the city of Portland, and that's what I'm gonna do when I get in.
15 seconds, we have more. Okay. I would like Tara to answer the same question, please.
Yeah, it's been really great to see all of the kind of unconventional folks that are coming together and demanding a fair wage and health benefits and becoming a part of the community and the union community. I've also enjoyed seeing it's also around our behavioral health workers. I'm a social worker, and I think that that's really critical. We have a lot of work to do, and I would support any worker that wants to join a union or become a member has my full support.
Thank you. Sam Chase, your question. The city has taken praiseworthy steps to address the housing crisis. With several tenant rights successes in recent years, however, there's still a clear shortage of homes that are both affordable and available to those who need them. The lowest income earners and people of color share a disproportionate amount of the burden and are least likely to own homes in our city. What would you do if elected to ensure those working full-time in our city can afford a decent and safe place to live?
Well, I will continue making it a lifelong challenge that I've had to create more affordable housing. Have had major reforms around urban renewal to require affordable housing, passed the nation's only regional affordable housing initiative in 2018. I led the charge and we got that done. Biggest initiative ever in the state of Oregon. It's going to pay prevailing wage jobs in the housing. That's another component with housing. Housing's a safety net. It's a Band-Aid for people who don't have living wage, prevailing wage jobs and benefits that they need to get by. So we have to tackle the job question.
Mingus, same question, please.
Hello, there we go. One of my top priorities is bringing more affordable housing to the city. I think we have to adopt a couple of different strategies. One is I think we need to build more. We can build more by incentivizing the building of affordable housing, by doing things like waiving fees for affordable housing for folks who are at the lower end of the income realm. I think we need to simplify the permitting process, and I think we need to preserve the affordable housing that we do have already.
Margot, some unions that represent City of Portland workers have been pushed to arbitration multiple times over the past few years during contract negotiations. In a union-strong city like Portland, better, more harmonious labor management relationships should be the norm. What will you do to improve labor management relations within city unions?
Thank you for this question. I think that the best that I can do as a city commissioner is to let both the management and especially the workers know that I support the right to organize. I support the workers in unions, that I believe that management has a responsibility to meet and hear their needs, and whatever else I can do as a city commissioner in order to either make sure that it doesn't go as far as arbitration, or make sure that the workers' demands are prioritized in a way that still facilitates a good labor-worker relationship, is whatever I will do, I will do.
Great, thank you. Sam Adams, same question, please.
So actually on the handout that volunteer passed out, we get into some of this. For example, I want to hear during the bargaining process, I want to hear the union's position in person, face to face. Not that I will have the ability to negotiate on my own, but I'm not going to rely on somebody else to tell me what your position is. That's what I did as commissioner, that's what I will do as mayor. And it will also mean that as your leaders, given the respect that they deserve, will have my cell phone number. And if there are issues with grievances that can lead to a whole bunch of problems like arbitration, I'll have an open door, you'll have a direct contact to me. I've done it before.
Thank you. Commissioner Udaley, the next question is for you. Project labor agreements are proven to benefit working people. contractors, communities, and taxpayers by ensuring projects are completed on time and on budget by skilled workers and pay families supporting wages. What will you do / have you done to ensure construction contractors in the city of Portland are required to sign project labor agreements to ensure the public investment benefits local communities?
That was a long question. I was the only sitting commissioner to endorse and support the Portland Clean Energy Fund. I've worked closely with Maui on the city's
Yes. I think the battery might be going
Will
down.
you get the other mic, please? Someone down there. We got another mic.
Here's another.
So I work closely with Maui in negotiating the city's CEIP and CBA agreements. I feel very strongly that when we invest public dollars, they should benefit workers and benefit the public, not just developers and speculative investors.
Thank you. Julia, same question.
All right. So I believe that PLAs are kind of the baseline. We absolutely need to have that for workers, and I don't think it should just be there for when workers demand it. It should be just the baseline of how we fund our public projects. I also have shown up for community benefits agreements back when I was running for office. Under the previous commissioner actually supported limiting CBAs to projects over $25 million and cutting the requirements for apprenticeships for projects under $300,000. If I'm in office, I'm going to push to make sure that we actually beef up our CBAs and that we're honoring our workers.
Thank you. The next question is from Margot. This last year, despite substantial outcry from the public and employees, the city moved forward with a budget that eliminated 60 living wage recreation positions and closed multiple vital community centers that have been relied upon by surrounding local neighborhoods. What would you have done differently to prevent this negative outcome? And what ideas do you have for improving the city's budgeting process and encouraging more robust frontline employee engagement in developing bureau budgets collaboratively?
Thank you. I don't think that we should be living in an austerity mindset when we do our city budgeting process. I do think that the budget is a moral document and it shows what our priorities are. I don't think that those jobs should have been cut. I think that we should have found other means of revenue in order to fund those positions, including taxing, like an income tax on higher tax earners or other different revenue streams that were discussed during the budget process. So first and foremost, I would have been more creative in those types of solutions before cutting jobs. I forgot what the second part was, but we're out of time, so.
Mingus, same question.
On the parks issue, I would have supported Joanne Hardesty's proposal to basically reduce, I believe, cost of living increases for highly paid managers. I also think that this was fundamentally a planning problem, but you know, the folks who put together this proposal we should have never been in this position in the first place. For the most part, I think it's important to preserve those neighborhood resources. I'm very much a neighborhood person.
Thank you. Sam Chase? The overall viability of the city of Portland is dependent upon planned growth and related services. Schools are an undisputed piece of any plan. What relationship should exist between the city and our school districts, and how would you build this relationship in your elected position?
Well, one of the areas that I have worked very hard is around the Career Construction Pathway Project and getting folks in building our supply of future workers. And that is a place where I think we can be much more engaged with the schools in building and creating long-term job opportunities for folks. There are also significant places in the health sector that need high-quality employees, and there are tremendous apprenticeship opportunities there. So that's one of the areas that I would really kind of prioritize.
Great, thank you. Loretta, same question.
Thank you. When I learned that communities of color, they were not graduating from high school at the same rate as everyone else, I took some of our one-time only money and put it into what we call a promised neighborhood. And we secured funding for them so that they could help folks graduate from college. Because what I do know is if you don't have an education, you don't have a job, you will not be able to be successful in life. And so I figured that if we're a safety net government, that we should use those dollars to help those communities who are not graduating from college. And we have a right to use those dollars, those taxpayer dollars, to help those communities of color.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Julia first. If you thought the other one was long. Unionized janitors and security officers in the Portland Metro have fought for years to raise wage, benefit, and worker protection standards in the janitorial and security industry through collective bargaining and through fighting to maintain union market density. At the same time, we have seen the commercial real estate market grow exponentially, creating significant wealth for downtown developers, while wages for janitors and security officers servicing those buildings remain low. We need a city council that will help us build a city that works for everyone, where people have access to good union jobs. What will you do to hold developers accountable to using union janitors and security officers?
That's a really good question. We absolutely, in order to address the fact that this city has become unaffordable for working class people, means that we have to raise the bar for working class people, not just make things more affordable. So that means that we need to require that when developers are building projects, especially with public money and when we're working with developers, that they are required to use union labor. These are basic things that we can do. There needs to be a baseline standard of employment that the city subscribes to, that it holds itself to in all the projects that are happening within the city's limits. And this is something that we can do. We're out of time.
Tara, same question, please.
Thanks. I think we, for the most part, all seem to be agreeing on a lot of these things, and I think what's really important is, will we reach out to you when there's a problem? And what happened when I was a chief of staff in Mayor Hales' administration, we did have SEIU reach out because this was happening with one of the buildings downtown and the janitors. And, it was about reaching out to the city attorney and doing the things that needed to be done to send the letter and start working with that, with the unions and with the developer and the building owner. So again, it's about, I will be there, I will be I will give you my number, but the point is that I will be there for you and I'll be there to help solve problems.
Thank you. Our next question is for Sam Adams. The city has clearly made homelessness a priority by increasing funding for critical services, adding hundreds of beds to shelters, and bolstering campsite cleaning programs. Despite these admirable efforts, the number of individuals experiencing houselessness in Portland remains at emergency levels. What do you believe the city can do to support individuals and the community that keeps pace with the growing crisis?
Well, I think the first thing the city of Portland needs to do is to get its act together. And where is the weekly meeting in city government where all the bureaus come together and look at the immediate needs of the week, but also the long-term needs, not only of those that are experiencing houselessness, but those that are impacted by those that are houseless. If it's really an emergency, this kind of expediting council, this kind of all hands on deck is what it takes in the commission form of government, and it's not happening.
Thank you. Commissioner Udaley, same question, please.
Well, we've made extraordinary investments in past policies and done a lot to combat our homelessness crisis. Unfortunately, rents keep rising and people keep becoming homeless. There's also an issue with, there's also the fact that this is a statewide issue and people are coming for help to Multnomah County from all over, and we're not getting buy-in from our neighbors. So we need help at the state level and we need help at the federal level. We can't solve this problem alone.
Thank you. Loretta, With the city undertaking a massive public project in the Broadway corridor, there is an opportunity for a strong community benefits agreement between the city and the contractors, unions, and community representatives to set quality standards for the working conditions, wages, and benefits, as well as employment and contracting opportunities for women and people of color. What will you do to ensure the City of Portland adopts and gives proper oversight for a strong community benefits agreement for this project that ensures jobs created are good union jobs?
First of all, I think we need to say that we need to have PLAs on every single project at the City of Portland. We need to make sure that we're reaching out to all our community partners, making sure that they know what we're doing and how we're spending our city dollars. I think half the problem with what's going on in the City of Portland, that we're not doing enough outreach into the communities to let them know what is actually happening so that they can participate. We need to have smaller business, women business, owned businesses, and we need to go out and talk with those folks and let them know when these things are happening, when the contracts are happening. I know I'm out of my time, but that's not what we're doing right now, and we need to make it a priority.
Okay, thank you. Mingus, please. Same question.
I support community benefits agreements. I think they're an incredibly important pipeline for bringing young people, minorities, women into the trades. I also think the trades need to have that sort of baseline of talent in the pipeline. I also think it's important to train young people in new building techniques and materials so that we have a vibrant economy for the 21st century.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Sam Chase. As a candidate and individual, you may be a strong labor ally who fights for the rights of workers. If elected, as a city official, you will also be on the management side of public employee contract negotiations. When bargaining comes up during your elected term, how would you continue to be a champion for the workers while sitting on the management side of negotiations?
Well, I want to share, I think the best way I can help kind of share that I will talk about those issues over and over again and bring them forward is to share with you some of the work that I've done in the past. When I first got to Metro Council as an elected official, the first thing I did was to push our management structure to convert 6 contracted out positions to AFSCME representation. Those positions are now permanently AFSCME represented. We can send messages and principles and priorities that we want living wages, we want benefits, we want pensions that are going to take care of our workforce and make sure our workers are doing the best job that they can possibly be doing.
Thank you. Margot, same question.
Thank you. I think one of the most important ways to be on that management side as a defender of labor is to remember where you came from. And one of the things that I will do as a candidate is, so I believe that everybody deserves not just a minimum wage, but a housing wage. If you can't afford to live in the city, then you're not making enough. And I won't take more than a housing wage as city commissioner so that I don't forget where I came from and what my promises are to the folks and what I'm fighting for. When I was myself a boss at Lewis and Clark College of over 30 student employees, I told them to organize to get raises. So that's
Thank you.
how I operate.
Woo! All right, next question is for Commissioner Daly. There has been a long and well-documented history of harassment in the workplace, and we now have various policies in place and mandatory trainings aimed at curtailing the problem. Recently, however, it seems that the culture of harassment and bullying has become more frequent and more creative, with workers also experiencing it from the public they serve, as well as from coworkers and bosses. What out-of-the-box trainings, policies, and procedures do you see as empowering frontline workers and their managers to best maintain harassment-free workplaces?
That's a very challenging question. I mean, I think many of us heard about the story last week about the African-American gentleman who worked for a towing company who was the victim of a racially motivated harassment, surveillance, and arrest. And we found out that that towing company had a City of Portland contract. We severed the contract. I have PBOT, which includes the maintenance. Oh, shoot, out of time.
Tara, same question.
So I think it's been really clear that lately, especially after the previous election, that more hate and more hate crimes have been reported. And we need to make sure, and I have to say, I sold cars when I was 21, so I do know a lot about harassment, so I was a female on a car lot. And we can't tolerate it. And if we need to set up some, obviously our trainings need to enhance as the rhetoric and the hate is getting stronger. And so we should probably be having not just more trainings, but also a hotline if somebody needs to be, if they're being harassed by a manager or by the public, they need to be able to call and it should be confidential, and then we need to be out of time. Okay.
Thank you. All right, our next question is for Mingus. Public education is under attack nationally, across the state, and even locally. Top-down mandates restrict educators from being the professional practitioners they are trained to be, and keep students from meaningful, engaging work. Standardized testing is prioritized over innovation, exploration, and the arts. Students are increasingly frustrated by their educational opportunities, and they, their families, and teachers are denied the right to participate in determining the best pathway to excellent education and engaged citizenship. Will you actively support parent, teacher, and student voice in educational decision-making, and if so, what does that look like?
Yes, I will. I should say that I'm a parent of a 9 and 10-year-old boys who are in public schools. Some of you may not know that I'm also an educator. I have a PhD in political science and spent much of my career teaching in the classroom. I believe that the way in which you build healthy, vibrant educational communities is by partnering and empowering teachers and parents and kids. When I'm on city council, I will be very much a champion of making that kind of change happen.
Great, thank you. Julia, same question, please.
So the children of this city are the future of this city, and our education system is not up to snuff in making sure that these kids have a fair opportunity to succeed in life. And our teachers seem to be, trying to do this job with one hand tied behind their back half the time. And I can say, as a candidate last time, I showed up to testify on behalf of teachers when they were fighting for the resources that they needed to provide what was necessary to underserved students. And I will continue to show up for teachers as much as I possibly can as your elected official, and partner better with the public school system to make sure that teachers and students are supported in the ways that they need.
Great, thank you. Sam Adams, next question is for you. Transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft are rapidly evolving and creating a new workforce within the gig economy. Thousands of Portland residents driving for these companies are excluded from critical labor laws like minimum wage, overtime, and protections from unfair terminations. The Portland Bureau of Transportation recently implemented a TNC Driver Advisory Committee to give these workers more of a voice. What will you do to ensure TNC drivers and other gig economy workers have a living wage and safe working conditions?
Well, first off, I will do everything that I possibly can, including any necessary changes to state law in the city's annual priorities for the state legislature that allows, to the extent possible under federal law, for gig economy workers to unionize. That's number one. Number two, I will also lobby the state government and look for opportunities to implement in city government where we make the mandatory arbitration clauses illegal, which keeps workers repressed.
Thank you. Sam Chase, same question.
Thank you. I think it's an incredible injustice for so many of the folks who've been building lives around cab industry and other industries to suddenly have these disruptions occur without the support of our community and our leaders. I will support the legislation stop legislation that would preempt local government from making decision making. I have spoken out already many times in support of unionizing and allowing the workers to unionize in Uber and Lyft and other gig economy structures.
Thank you. So we have one more question in this segment before we'll be going to questions from the audience that should have been turned in on written cards. So our last question goes to Tara first. We face a climate crisis as carbon emissions continue to speed up global warming. 40% of carbon emissions in Multnomah County come from buildings. Some of the best policies to reduce building emissions take a green approach, requiring reductions in energy usage and emissions, training frontline janitors to take action to meet these objectives, and creating good jobs that benefit people of color and working class people. How will you ensure that the City Climate Action Plan, PCEF projects, and other city policies simultaneously reduce carbon emissions in buildings and create good jobs through green janitorial training programs?
That's a great question. So the past 3 years, I've been working in Salem to fight the climate crisis, and I want to turn my efforts to the city of Portland. I think that it's critical. Buildings and transportation is where the majority of our emissions are coming from, and what we can't do is we can't pick one or the other, and that's a choice that they keep trying to get people to make in Salem. It's not about whether or not you get a job or your kid can breathe clean air. That is a false choice. And we need to stand up and make sure that we're doing both. So that means prevailing wages, and that means that we're doing PLAs on any of our clean energy projects. And I'm at the time.
Thank you. Loretta?
Thank you. One of the things that I know is that in the poorer communities in Portland, going down I-5 and I-205 in the Jade District, we need to support having additional electric buses. Some of the most toxic air is around the Jade area, and if we talk and partner with TriMet to make sure that we're having those buses go in the districts where communities of color and lower income communities are. When you go down I-205 and 82nd Avenue, that is some of the most toxic air, and what we need to do is try to identify opportunities where we can decrease the toxicity in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. All right, so now is the time to hear from the audience. So we'll keep the same format, and I've got some questions that were turned in. Thank you very much. So our first question goes to Commissioner Udaley. What is your position on contracting out, privatizing public services? And what will you do to keep public work public?
This isn't really an issue that I've had to confront much in my first 3 years in city council. I am generally against contracting out and preserving union jobs at the city. I've actually tried to explore whether we can bring our security workers in-house. Leave it at that. I'm sorry guys, I'm really struggling with not feeling well tonight. So.
Sam Adams, same questions?
I think that contracting out is only when the law requires and as a last resort where specialization is not available within the city workforce. City workforce does much better work because they're going to be there when the project is done. And I value the fact that in terms of the services and the projects provided by the City of Portland, that it is our great workforce that makes that happen. And the importance of the respect for unions, not only day in and day out, and my time's up.
Thank you. All right, this next question, let's go to Julia. Will you support the efforts to bring a Major League Baseball team to Portland and build a stadium?
Oh my goodness, that's not a question I was expecting. I would not support using public money to do so, I have to say. That is as far as I'll go on that. If people want a baseball stadium, some rich people can try to make that happen, I guess. But like, that's not something I'm committed to doing as a commissioner. Hopefully no one's disappointed by the answer. And we see what you get with me, guys. I say it like it is. I am who I am here, and I am who I am in every other space I go into.
Thank you. Mangus.
Basically, a similar answer. Baseball in Portland could be fun. I don't want to spend public money on building the stadium. There's lots of evidence that that's an economic loser for the city. I also really care about where we put the stadium and how that impacts the communities surrounding that big building. Yeah.
Margot. Margot, wage theft is a big problem in construction. Multnomah County has adopted a labor compliance program to ensure workers receive the wages they are owed. What will you do to combat wage theft on construction projects?
Well, I guess I would first look at emulating Multnomah County's project. I presume if the question was relevant to the city of Portland, and I would like to see how that program has worked or not in general. I think we have a real problem with enforcing the rights and protections that workers have fought for and that renters have fought for. And we need better enforcement mechanisms instead of complaint-driven mechanisms that put the burden on the worker or on the renter to both know their rights and then hire an attorney to enforce their rights. Perhaps the city should provide more resources on both ends of that.
Time's up, thank you. Sam Chase, please.
Yeah, I absolutely, everything I can do to stop wage theft. Again, we are taking from our very employees that are delivering the services that we need in our city, writing that into contracts and having that be a part of every contract. When I am at the city, I will be very much like I have been at Metro, which is to require that every job that we can be a represented job, converting temp jobs to full-time jobs, contracted jobs to represented jobs. So that is a place where I think we can have more control over wage theft.
Thank you. Loretta, the next question is for you. What will you do to support children and families impacted by homelessness and addiction in Southeast 82nd and 122nd corridors?
First of all, I'm going to support baseball because baseball is going to bring 25,000 to 30,000 jobs, and those jobs that bring those taxes into this community can help with homelessness out on Southeast 82nd Street. And those supply side jobs that are going to come with baseball is going to make sure that we're increasing our operating budgets in the city of Portland. So we need to be trying to figure out how we can bring additional living wage jobs to Portland.
Sam Adams, same question. What will you do to support children and families impacted by homelessness and addiction in the Southeast 82nd and 122nd corridors?
By building more affordable housing with services attached, the Portland Bond for Housing, it's done. Those should be built as quickly as possible. Get through the city's red tape. Every month, day, week that they're delayed, that means someone is harmed and more people die in the street. The second thing is they're coming in about $310,000 a unit, and we have to get that per unit cost down. I think there's opportunities to build family-friendly housing that is the co-living style, where you have shared kitchens, where you have shared bathrooms in some cases, and where childcare is shared as a community. These are community-organized, co-living spaces with supportive services on site.
Thank you. Commissioner Udaley. Portland police are frequently used to enforce anti-houseless policies and ordinances such as the sidewalk use, leading to use of force and loss of belongings. In 2017, the Oregonian reported people experiencing houselessness accounted for 52% of arrests. The city has responded in part by conducting sweeps of camps. What policies do you support to reduce the disparities in police arrests?
So one of the first things that my office did when we got to City Hall was convene a meeting with the mayor's office, with community groups, with stakeholders, to try to develop a more humane sweeps policy. The one remaining issue we haven't solved is, I believe, if we're going to forcefully remove someone, they have to have somewhere to go. So that's something that I'm diligently working on, safe sleep spaces. Homelessness isn't a crime, therefore the police shouldn't be sent to deal with it.
Thank you. Julia, same question, please.
We absolutely need to decriminalize poverty in this city, and sending police to deal with unhoused individuals and doing sweeps is not only ineffective and inhumane, it's really expensive. It's just not a good use of our resources. We need to find a way to provide services to people within the city before this housing comes online. Housing doesn't exist yet, and people need a place to live. We need to find private property areas, public property areas where we can provide temporary shelter and provide services, and really dig deep in finding these solutions, because leaving people in the streets is not an option and sweeping them isn't either.
Thank you. Sam Chase. Income inequality is getting more and more out of hand. Unions are one of the best ways to get living wages. What specific ways will you help unions grow in membership and work?
Well, one I want to say about housing is, again, we are doing housing because we don't have the living wage jobs that are out there. I will continue to support, promote policies that people see help create long-term living wage jobs, and I think that's going to build the unions. Just like I was the person that brought the housing community along to go down to the legislature with Bob Shipwreck and John Moelis to get prevailing wage legislation on affordable housing projects as well as commercial. I will continue to do that, and people will see that we have strategies through our unions to build and create long-term living wage jobs.
Thank you. Tara, same question, please.
I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. We're talking about the clean energy economy. We're talking about a lot of different opportunities. We need to be looking forward. And as we're looking forward, let's make sure that we're bringing everybody with us. And that means, are you able to make a living wage? And are you able to live in the neighborhood that maybe you work in? And are you able to have your kid can go to school and you're not driving around? So it's about supporting and keeping the values straight. And if our values are that we support workers and we want to make sure that they are the ones that are going to have the money to be able to live in the city that they work in, then we need to be putting that forward in all of our policies.
Thank you. Mingus, what will you do to ensure lifelong administrative staff provides only factual information and does not influence policy or position?
Can you clarify the question for me? I'm not sure what you're trying to get at.
I don't know. This is one from the audience.
Okay. Can you read the question for me one more time?
What will you do to ensure lifelong administrative staff provides only factual information and does not influence policy or position?
Sure. Well, I think my approach to that would be to be an engaged commissioner. One of the things that's important to me is to have an open door policy, to listen to constituents and the folks who actually do the work. And I view my job as fundamentally to empower the people who do the work, and also empower Portlanders to make their neighborhoods and communities stronger and safer and more healthy.
Margo, same question.
Okay. Well, I have to say I'm not sure that I can promise that administrative staff wouldn't be able to influence policy. I will respond to my constituents, assuming my constituents, my staff lives in Portland, they would be part of that. I plan on surrounding myself with good, smart folks who have lived the struggle and who know what solutions we need to have on the table. That being said, I absolutely will prioritize listening to the folks out in the trenches doing the work and what they need, and that is who will ultimately influence policy and who I'll be accountable to.
Great, thank you. So that concludes our audience questions. So as we wrap up the City Council portion of the event, we'll start right here again and have you have 30 seconds for your closing statement.
Sure. I'm here tonight to introduce myself to you and to ask for your vote. Didn't really get a chance to talk about the issues that I really care about, but I'm running for City Council to bring more affordable housing to the city, to reduce homelessness. I think it's time that we change our form of government so that we elect members of City Council by district. And I also think it's time for a city manager also. We need to be able to coordinate services across programs. I believe neighborhoods associations and neighborhoods are part of the solution, not part of the problem. I think that's true with crime prevention too. Crime prevention is one of the ways we make our communities safer. It is not something that we should get rid of.
Thank you.
Well, I'm running for re-election for Portland City Council because it's the place where I can do the most good for my community. I have relentlessly pursued policy solutions that do the most good for the most people, and I've delivered them. I've delivered them on tenant protections. I've delivered them On climate, I've delivered them on transportation. And I'm not done yet.
This election has to be about how we're going to address the homeless issue, how we're going to get more affordable housing, how we're going to restore parks and recreation funding and summer school that's been cut. I am the kind of person who has taken on the tough stuff, working with partners like folks in this room and folks outside this room to get the tough stuff done, and I can bring that experience along with fresh ideas, having been able to travel the world and see cities all over the world in the United States, to the critical needs of Portland now.
You know, I was thinking about the gains that we have made for workers' rights and benefits. They've been under attack, especially in Blue Oregon. I have been working for over 30 years as a public sector employee. And having an employer who stands by you, who keeps their word, as a city elected official, I will make sure that I do that with billions of dollars that are in our budget. I know that we can do better, and I know that just having someone who says that they're for worker rights and that they'll be your friend, it's not good enough. You need to have family who are out there working and fighting on your behalf.
Right at time, so
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you'll see in my handout that I have stood up over and over and over again as an elected official publicly for workers' rights. Now we really have to take care of our homeless community and address our homelessness crisis with a much bigger strategy that meets the economy of the scale of our homeless crisis. That means going big and getting not just Portland to quadruple down to try to solve the region's housing crisis, to get all 23 jurisdictions around the region to put their resources into affordable housing, to put their resources into homeless services. We can do it. We can start to spend our dollars much more smartly here in Portland, but we can accomplish and achieve a lot of success on homelessness.
You know, in the social change world, we like to talk a lot about centering those most impacted, because those most impacted know what we need the most and deserve the most, and we feel the urgency in our bones. But I have been, I've had a front row seat at City Hall the last several years working on housing policy, and I've seen how hard it is for those most impacted to have their voices heard, to be taken seriously, and to not be told to take whatever crumbs we get and be grateful. And I am in the struggle with you. I know that those most impacted are the workers and the folks who helped build this city and who don't earn enough money to live in it and to stay in it, and who are raising their children only to see their children be pushed out of it or their elderly parents not be able to afford to live in it. I've done the work and I have the relationships in City Hall to get more done. Yeah, let's do it.
So I've been campaigning and working on system change for the last 2.5 years. I ran on a platform of changing our form of government before the City Club report came out telling us how bad the commission form of government is and how inequitable the at-large election system is. And the bottom line is all the crises and all the problems we're talking about come out of the fact that we have a form of government that has not served the people of this city. We're heading into a charter review year. You want a candidate, you want a person in that seat who's been fighting for the last 2.5 years to give us a system that represents the people and the working people of the city, and I am that candidate. So I hope to get your vote out of time.
So the reason I'm running is, one of the reasons I'm running is because I am somebody in recovery, and I've been clean and sober for 23 years, and one of the things that I see is a big deal is we're losing that perspective. That perspective is not on our council, and it's not in a lot of our elected bodies. And it's important. It's important to understand what closing a sobering center means. It's important to understand what not having a detox bed ready the day you're ready to go to detox means. And that's stuff that we can do. It's important to understand when we don't have halfway houses and we don't have sober houses, we are losing families. I lost mine. So I'm telling you that I am here to fight for the people that are the most impacted. In my world, the most impacted are people who are suffering from alcohol and drug addiction. And we have solutions, and there is recovery is possible, and we need to be doing that.
Thank you. All right, thank you all so much. We've now asked that you take a seat in the front row that's been reserved for you. And I'd like to invite up our member panelists, union member panelists. You may take any seat. And we're going to hear some stories of how people within our community have been impacted. All right, so I'd like to welcome our panel consisting of union members from diverse sectors and backgrounds in our city who are each going to share a brief story highlighting one of their issues. I ask each panelist to introduce themselves and share your story, and you'll have 2 minutes and we'll move on. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Fox. I'm a member of the Portland Association of Teachers. I teach high school at Cleveland High School. And I thought long and hard about what this is the most important thing that I could talk about that would help teachers and students in the city and what the story would be. And so my story is a story of families that are struggling to get by in our city. And I was asked to give like a name, something visceral, of one of my many children who doesn't know where they're sleeping tonight. But I'm not going to exploit my children, so this story is more visceral for you in the hopes that if or when you're elected, that you do the right thing. Every single teacher in Portland Public shares this story. I have 2 to 3 students in each one of my classes that do not know where they're sleeping tonight. Teachers are public servants. In order to do our job well, we need a functioning society. Kids who do not know where their next meal is coming from or where they're sleeping tonight are thinking about survival. And I'm in the business of creating the opportunity to thrive. Right now, a 500 square foot studio apartment is being built around the city that's going to rent for $1,000 a month. It's being called affordable housing. Developers who are responsible for bringing us this great housing relief are given compensation to increase their profit margin to make up for this charitable gift. The cost of living is something in your purview. In order for me to do my job well, I need you to do yours. If you're elected, people with degrees are going to crunch numbers and will tell you that $1,000 a month for a studio is affordable housing. Please hear me right now, that this is not affordable housing. Affordable housing is $300 to $500 a month for families. We need wraparound services in our city, funding for addiction and mental health, and healthcare and foster care, before and after school care. Community centers in every single community. We need this so that our students even have a shot at learning. And all of this costs money. What Portland Association of Teachers is looking for, what I'm looking for as a voter, is someone who's not just going to do the right thing when presented with a measure by supporting it with their vote. It's the least you can possibly do. I, for one, am sick of anemic responses like, I'll vote for it. We're looking for a champion to make this city, for our families, and for our children, not to survive. We want to thrive.
That's exactly what I meant. I totally look at y'all. My name is Lena Alaslaughter. I'm from Local 483. That's right. I came to Parks because I have a real passion for being in the community and working with teens. I've always loved working with the youth in my community. I left the position with Portland Public Schools for 10 years so that I could go back to school at PSU to graduate with my community development degree. So I had a passion and a purpose of what I was going to do. I work for Parks and Rec, and I work at a community center where it's where I want to be. Last year, working for Parks and Showed every day was hard. Even saying this is hard. I always had a position that I got laid off. I was laid off. I had that face. So those people who are on the city council, I remember everything you said. And voting time, I'm going to remember everything you said because I will not vote for you. job the best of my ability to make sure I was supporting and helping those youth in my community. While doing my job, not knowing if I was going to have a job, not knowing if I could pay my rent. There was no transparency of how we got to where we were with the budget. I have no idea how y'all had lost that 6 point whatever million. I don't know. This not only affected myself, but my family, but those relationships that who I built that I was gonna lose. I had students crying, wondering where I was gonna go. So it takes a special kind of person to work for Parks. Not anybody can just work for Parks. Not anybody can just work in a community center. So what I'm here to say, I'm here to make sure that the candidates have a passion for Parks. Because just know I will not vote for you. People who are in city council right now, I will not vote for you. Because you were not there for me.
Hi, my name is Ryan Shank. I'm here representing Portland Fire, Local 43. I'm a firefighter at Station 28 up on Sandy and 57. And I just want to share with you a little bit about what's going on with us. So our call volume is up higher than it's ever been before. It's over 110,000 calls a year. And that is a tremendous amount of work that we're doing every day in the community. And that is by far the highest call volume and the most work that any fire department in the state of Oregon is doing right now. So we are in a place where we're really working on a daily basis with a lot of different challenges. One of those challenges is situations where we're feeling at times unsafe at work. You know, part of the houselessness crisis does affect us, and that when we go to calls, there are instances where we're challenged with violence from some of the people that we're asked to serve. And we got called just the other day to a illegal burn in the PSU area, and the crew that responded had to basically be confronted by a person with a knife. And fortunately, no one was injured in that, but that's not an outlier. That's a common thing we're dealing with on a daily basis. In addition to that, you know, many of us live in the community where we work. Stephanie Bowen here, who's with us tonight, is a captain at the station where I work, and she actually responded to a call where a neighbor in her neighborhood had committed suicide. Someone that she would ride by their house every day and see that person, and then, you know, that happens. So there's a lot of stresses that we endure on a daily basis. And then we contrast that with kind of what we're dealing with from the city government that we are part of and serve. And we're dealing with, every year, we're dealing with budget cuts. We're dealing with binding arbitration that we're being faced with for a second time in our contract negotiations. And so under the stress that we're feeling as workers, we don't feel like we're being supported, which is really difficult for all of our members that are working really hard to provide the best service they can for the community.
Good evening. My name is Anjanette Manuelos Bolanos. I'm a member of Local 737. I've been a member since 2011. I'm a third-generation laborer. My mother is a laborer. My grandfather was a laborer. I joined the laborers after attending Oregon Trade Women's Pre-Apprenticeship Program. When I joined the union, I was a single mother living in my parents' spare bedroom with 3 children on public assistance. I had joined the union because I knew it would give me a way to be self-sufficient. I needed a career, not just a job. I needed benefits. I needed a living wage job, not minimum wage. I was able to become successful because there were policies in place that assured it. I would be able to work in the community. Policies like the community agreements and community agreements that required for female minorities, and most beneficial one for me was hiring people who lived in the area the project was being built. When I worked at the Kelly Butte project, I was able to work in my neighborhood, which allowed me to spend less time in traffic and be home with my children. At a reasonable time, this is a major and vital for any single mother. I was able to spend more time with my children and with my family, making a living wage. Being a union member has provided me and my family with opportunities, including self-sufficiency, stability, security, and home ownerships. So community agreements are only beneficial when they're enforced and actually utilized.
Bună seara, numele meu este Iana Ungureanu și eu lucrez pentru City of Portland, pentru orașul nostru frumos.
How many of you have understood what I said? Thank you. My name is Yana Spada, and I do work for the City of Portland. I am part of ASME Local 189, and I speak 3 languages, English, Romanian, and Russian. And unfortunately, I am not paid for that at my job, at my work. So part of me being in the United States for the last 7 years, working for the city for the last 3.5 years, has involved fighting for equity. I believe in equity for everyone. I believe in equity for our communities, for those who come to work every day, help communities, not just by being present there, but also translating on a daily basis for everything that we do for our city to work and to make it work. So being part of the bargaining table for DCTU and the City of Portland contract, I have found a lot of lack of interest, or better said, not interest, in bringing a policy that would help us, folks who come to work every day and translate, besides doing the good that we do as City of Portland employees. And I'm not sure why the City of Portland has a hard time approving a policy to pay those who speak a second or third language, to make that work thrive, as it already is, but is not recognized. So, as I'm standing with you right now, I would like for the City of Portland management specifically to recognize the equity and to promote the equity in what we call translation work at, during our job. And I would like to work together with other electives to make this policy work, to have a strong contract, and to ensure that we're all here for equity for the City of Portland. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Renato Quintero. I am a janitor that works in Intel in Hillsborough. And I also the Vice President of SIU Local 49. SIU have around 15,000 janitors, security officers, and health workers in the metropolitan area. I have been working as a janitor for the last 20 years. In that time, I have been seeing Portland commercial real estate market explode, creating wealth for the downtown developers while low wages remain. Portland has been a very popular place to live, but the economic recovery has not reached the working families. Many of our members are trying to support their families in low wages, having to make tough decisions over paying for the rent or get groceries. We, the workers, deserve a fair shot on the economy. Portland should not be only for the wealthy. In the spring of this year, the janitors of the downtown, we are going to bargain the master contract agreement. We expect to negotiate for higher wages, more sick days, and money for educational fund for our members. We need to support in order to reach this goal. We need a city that is fair for everybody, not just for a few. We need a city council that help us to build a world-class city where people can have access to good jobs, health care, and affordable housing. Thank you.
So I personally, as a fellow union brother and sister with everyone in here and sibling, just feel so fortunate to get to hear your stories, because it's you that put the U in union, and it's all of you that put the unity in our event tonight. And I'm really proud to be part of a groundbreaking event such as tonight, letting us all be heard, and we're so fortunate because there's a lot of people out there that aren't being heard at all. So I love hearing the stories. What we'd like to do now is go ahead and invite our mayoral candidates up to the stage. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes as we try. All right, let's go ahead and get this party started. So we are now moving into our mayoral candidates. And just a little bit of business for anyone who maybe came into the room a little bit late. We know where the bathrooms are, we know where the garbages are, we've silenced our cell phones, yes? All right. And then, so again, we'll move into some introductions. We'll go into question and answer series with the debate style, and then we'll take questions for the audience. If you did not get a card and you would still like to do a question specifically for the mayoral candidates, you can get one up here at the table. Do we still have some left? Yes? Or you can hand them in at the table or give them to any staff. All right, so now I'd like to welcome 4 of our mayoral candidates to the stage this evening. And we will start with introductions. You'll have about 30 seconds to introduce yourself. So let's start here directly to my right.
Then testing, 1, 2, 3, hi. All right, hello everybody, I'm Osvaldo Gonzalez. My walking around name is Ozzy, and I'm running for Portland mayor. I'm a father, a husband, a climate scientist, an architect, and an artist. A very unlikely combination to be running for office, but after all these years of hearing about the issues in our city, of seeing the issues right before my eyes, and listening to the need for change, I've decided to step forward, put myself out there, and step into being able to do something important for our city. I've heard the call, and I know that we all need to be a part of that call. So help me answer the call, and let's get to know each other a little tonight.
Hi everyone. My name is Sarah Ianrode, and I'm running for Portland Mayor because I feel our city is becoming increasingly out of reach for poor and working families. People are being squeezed out. I come from a labor background. My father was a union organizer. He came home late nights after collective bargaining. My mother's retired on a teacher's pension from New York State. The fact that they are retired on pensions with health care eases my mind as they age. I don't see those benefits occurring to families in Portland today. I see our labor commitment being watered down through public policy again and again, and I want you to know that if you vote for me, you will have a champion in the mayor's office, and I will be on your side.
Good evening. Good evening, Ted Wheeler, incumbent. There's 2 institutions that are protecting the middle class in America today: labor and public employment organizations like the City of Portland. I'm not here to talk about aspirations. I voted to expand union labor by bringing our seasonal contractors in as full-time employees with living wage jobs. I protected union jobs at City Hall, including our security guards and our janitors. I worked with all of you on the CBA and the Broadway corridor to create what is going to be a world-class example of a CBA. And you know I worked with you at the state to create the first of its kind state-sponsored retirement plan for low-income workers all across our city. It's an example for the nation, and I'm proud of my record with all of you.
Thank you, Ted. My name is Teresa Rayford. I'm a 4th generation Oregonian, and I just wanted to say that if you want to learn more information about my campaign, you can find it at teresarayfordformayor.com. As a 4th generation Oregonian, I can tell you this: my great-grandmother worked for Fred G. Meyer before women can unionize at Fred Meyer's. My grandfather and my great-grandfather worked on the shipyards, the Kaiser shipyards. I remember growing up listening to stories about gas tanks and gas buildings exploding. The biggest problem is that those unions were not strong enough for our families, and we're seeing what that looks like now. We have to work better. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we go into the question and debate series, I will address the question to one of the participants. You will get a chance to answer, and then I will call upon another candidate to answer as well. So we will begin with Sarah. History has proven that unions helped ensure shared prosperity by setting higher standards for wages, safety, and benefits for all workers, and buffering against economic inequality. The city can make organizing a workplace easier through public policy and supporting workers' legal access to the majority sign-up method of organizing. Recognizing when a majority of workers have signed cards expressing their desire to unionize. If elected, what would you do to reduce barriers and promote union organizing in the city of Portland?
I showed up for people who are attempting to organize recently in Portland. I picketed with the Burgerville workers. I stood there beside them. I showed up for the parks workers when they were battling to make sure that their jobs weren't cut. I've shown up for labor time and again. And everything I can do from the mayor's office will be making sure that my door is open, that I'm listening to labor, and that they're guiding the policy decisions that they're making. These aren't going to be made behind closed doors with management that doesn't understand their concerns. They're going to be made from the perspective of labor first, and we're thinking about these things.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, same question for you.
I'll continue. I'm going to continue to be a strong ally to our labor organizations and our collective bargaining units. That means my personal engagement. That means making sure that my mayoral team maintains good communications and that issues arise, that we address those issues before they become a significant problem. And it means continuing to keep our eye on the ball in terms of future visions. What we are doing around the Broadway corridor will create a labor agreement unlike anything we saw in the South Waterfront or the Pearl District or anything anywhere else. As the opportunity to be a true game changer in terms of wages, benefits, and working conditions for working men and women.
Thank you. Teresa? The city has clearly made homelessness a priority by increasing funding critical services, adding hundreds of beds to shelters, and bolstering campsite cleaning programs. Despite these admirable efforts, the number of individuals experiencing houselessness in Portland remains at emergency levels. What do you believe the city can do to support individuals and the community that keeps pace with the growing crisis?
Well, one of the biggest things that I've been doing over the last couple of years, my nephew died about 10 years ago, and I became a community activist, but only because I started organizing with organized labor. I started organizing with teachers. I started organizing with social workers. I started working and organizing with members of the city of Portland. And what I'm understanding about the inadequate leadership that we have is that there's not enough community engagement. There's not enough organizing and education for the people that live in the general public. So we need to start bringing them to the table so that your influence, your ideas, your experience guides our work.
Thank you. Ozzy, same question, please.
Thank you. We do have to get our act together about this. It is an emergency, and we have to recognize that everything we do right now for the people that are already in that emergency situation is going to help every one of us and the people we love if anything happens to put us in that situation. There's so many reasons that can take us there. So we have to get our act together by leveraging the collective talent and the collective ambition of our city. This is the kind of leadership that I'm bringing forward. I know how to pull together the faith community, the business community, the doers, the builders, the folks in this room that are all interested in helping make their neighborhoods a place where they can be proud to walk around and to bring their families through on any given day. This is an important thing.
Mayor Wheeler, this question is for you. Government bidding processes only consider immediate price and do not consider the long-term effects of procurement choices on our economy. What else do you believe should be considered in public procurement and purchasing, and how would you ensure bids are being awarded to responsible and responsive bidders?
I would give the example of the custodians at City Hall. We use a company called Relay. Relay is not only a union shop, they also make a special effort to include people who have developmental disabilities. They're not always the lowest cost provider, because I don't believe in a race to the bottom. I believe in lifting the community up, and one of the overarching themes of my administration has been shared economic prosperity, and that means we open the doors to share prosperity, we do not close them.
Sarah, same question, please.
I think opening the doors to prosperity means not making sure that we're making good on our labor agreements. When I think about the FAR transfer that we made in the Park West building and the fact that SEIU is suing the city right now as mayor, I wouldn't want to be that person being sued when we made a labor agreement that said this was going to be union janitorial and union security in that building. I think if we're going to make agreements for labor, then we need to keep them. So that's the kind of mayor that you can count on me to be. I'm also going to think carefully when we're looking at these budgets, what is the public input on that going to look like?
Thank you. Ozzy.
Same question?
Nope, new question.
I'm ready for it.
It's a little related. Some unions that represent City of Portland workers have been pushed to binding arbitration multiple times over the past few years during contract negotiations. In a union-strong city like Portland, better, more harmonious labor management relationships should be the norm. What will you do to improve labor management relations with city unions?
This begins with relationships. Being able to establish working relationships well in advance of when you get into that negotiation phase is critical. And being able to give respect is the first step towards being able to earn that respect. So I want to recognize the fact that in a moment where we are changing technologies and so many of our jobs are shifting the skills that are needed to do them, right now is an important time to be able to have those kinds of partnerships, because as we adapt our training programs, our apprentice programs, the skill set, and we reskill workers, we need to be partners in that. It goes well beyond just renegotiating the contracts. It's about protecting what you're going to be able to do into the jobs of the future.
You. Mayor Wheeler, same question.
I think it's important that you elect a mayor who shares your values, but is also willing to take the risks and push the leadership. As you heard somebody on this panel say, they don't just want somebody who's going to vote for something, they want somebody who will stand with you. And I have stood with you. I've stood with you when we expanded the labor pool in the parks. I stood with you when we created a retirement program for lower income people. I stood with you when we revised the IPA rather than coming after people's benefits. I stood with you when people, including some people on this stage, wanted to cut the SEIU contractors or the SEIU employees who work on security in our building. We can talk aspirations all day long, but what I've got that my opponents don't have is a record of working with you and collaborating with you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll begin with Teresa. The overall viability of the city of Portland is dependent upon planned growth and related services. Schools are an undisputed piece of any plan. What relationship should exist between the city and our school districts, and how would you build this relationship in your elected position?
First of all, what we need to do is we need to make sure that our schools are safe for the people working inside of them. We need to listen to them when they say that they're being exposed to toxins. And the second thing we need to do is we need to make our city affordable enough so that our neighbors can be our teachers, so that they can live in the communities in which they teach, so that they can have relationships with the parents and the community businesses that are in those neighborhoods, because their experience with our children is what is guiding us. We're learning about the expectations we should have as leaders because we're hearing it from the teachers. They're on the front line. We need to support them in any way, in any capacity that we can to build a stronger union for them.
Thank you. Sarah, same question.
Yeah, the teachers that I'm speaking with aren't really feeling heard or seen by City Hall. They feel like the schools are left out of the discussions about urban growth, and they actually would like a mayor who met with them frequently and discussed these things with them. They're worried about the disruption in their classroom. They're not able to administer the curriculum as families are being pushed from neighborhood to neighborhood and further to the urban fringe here. They're worried about armed officers in their schools, frankly, and they want their students safe, whether they're inside or outside of the school building. And I think it's important as the mayor to have an open door policy to the teachers in our city, especially the teachers union. Thank you for hosting us today.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, this one's you will begin with. There has been a long and well-documented history of harassment in the workplace, and we now have various policies in place and mandatory trainings aimed at curtailing the problem. Recently, however, it seems that the culture of harassment and bullying has become more frequent and more creative, with workers also experiencing it from the public that they serve, as well as from coworkers and bosses. What out-of-the-box trainings, policies, and procedures do you see as empowering frontline workers and their managers to best maintain a harassment-free workplace?
Start by leading by example. I don't tolerate harassment in the workplace of any kind against any of our public employees, and hold those accountable who do engage in this behavior and get rid of them. They are not welcome in our workforce. If they are harassing their fellow employees, we did have a very public example, I believe it was in the Parks Bureau recently. I have asked for an investigation for the last 2 months I've been the Parks Commissioner. And I'm concerned about those issues, and we do not tolerate it, but we have to lead by example. We have to investigate it when it happens, and we have to hold people accountable if they're engaged in bullying or harassing behavior. It's hard enough to do a public employee's job without people making it even harder.
Teresa, same question, please.
As someone who advocates for a lot of people who have been harassed, intimidated, discriminated against, or oppressed, what we need to do is we need to enforce laws that exist right now. We need to make sure that we represent the needs of the people that are being harmed by providing access to legal services and advocacy so that they can articulate what's happening, and so that when we register these things, we look at trends as they happen and we're concerned with enforcement, making sure that people know that when they come to work that they're safe. Thank you.
Next question, we'll begin with Ozzy. Unionized janitors and security officers in the Portland Metro have fought for years to raise wage, benefit, and worker protection standards in the janitorial and security industry through collective bargaining and through fighting to maintain union market density. At the same time, we have seen the commercial real estate market grow exponentially, creating significant wealth for downtown developers, while wages for janitors and security officers servicing those buildings remain low. We need a city council that will help us build a city that works for everyone, where people have access to good union jobs. What will you do to hold developers accountable to using union janitors and security officers?
My father taught me, who cleaned some buildings. I have family that's janitors as well. They said, you want to take down an organization, make friends with the janitors and the security guards. Because the power of operating anything from day to day depends on the folks that are taking care of those things. And that is the most vital part of an organization. I'm an ecologist. You want to take down an ecosystem? You remove the algae from a pond. You want to do that in a social ecosystem? You work with the janitors. A CEO takes months before an organization feels their absence. The janitors, you feel their absence today. We got to tap your power, and we got to make sure nobody forgets who really keeps the lights on.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler?
There's no question that one of the biggest challenges facing this community is the lack of shared economic prosperity. And I've said many times, I do not want Portland to become San Francisco, where the only people who can afford to live there are people who are earning 6 income figures. I care about janitors, I care about security guards, I care about police officers and teachers and bus drivers and the people who actually make this community work. And one of the first things we need to do going forward as a city is not negotiate contracts with private sector developers that have loopholes large enough to drive a TriMet bus through.
Thank you.
We got to bring an end to that. And I will. The next time I have the opportunity to negotiate a contract, which we will be doing in the Broadway corridor.
Sarah, you're up next. The city has taken praiseworthy steps to address the housing crisis, with several tenant rights successes in recent years. However, there is still a clear shortage of homes that are both affordable and available to those that need them. The lowest income earners and people of color share a disproportionate amount of the burden and are least likely to own homes in the city. What would you do if elected to ensure those working full-time in our city can afford a decent and safe place to live?
big thank you. We have some tenant organizers in the audience and running for office, so thank you for your hard work on that. I've shown up in support of tenants' rights, and I've showed up for the last 5 years working on the comprehensive plan update to make sure that we can re-legalize affordable housing all over this city, across from East Portland right to downtown, in terms of making sure that we have affordable multifamily housing, to make sure that we're not having racist exclusionary zoning around our city so that some neighborhoods don't have affordable housing. I've made sure that people are organizing around housing access, and even making sure that we're protecting shelter access in neighborhoods across the city. We need a shared burden model. Some neighborhoods in the city shouldn't be assuming the whole burden, while other neighborhoods are opting out of the affordability question.
Thank you. Ozzy, same question.
Thank you. You heard it. You heard the point made earlier. The affordable housing label is a regulated term, and it does not mean these things are affordable for the community. So let's just leave that term on the side for a second, and let's talk about housing that is accessible to the people that live and work and exist in Portland. We need to have that answer. And it's not just because it's a right, it's because without the people that we need to run this city every day, being able to live here, have their children here, and be a part of it, we're not going to be able to function. This is simply about creating a system that works, and we need a city that has all of the pieces in it accommodated for.
Thank you. Teresa, as a candidate and individual, you may be a strong labor ally who fights for the rights of workers. If elected as city official, you will also be on the management side of public employee contract negotiations. When bargaining comes up during your elected term, how would you continue to be a champion for workers while sitting on the management side of negotiations?
Give the people what they want. I believe that the manager's opportunity to listen to the labor and to work along with the bureaus to build the efficiencies that they're telling us, they're guiding us on, that's what our job is. Our job is not to make decisions over you or for you. Our jobs are to listen to you and to effectively utilize the things that you're telling us, to go ahead and build those processes in so that they support making your union strong. That is how we become allies with you.
Sarah, same question.
I don't like the false dichotomy that we're posed that we have to trade off worker rights in order for us to be a prosperous city oftentimes when we're thinking about how do we balance our budgets. If Portland's going to prosper, it shouldn't be on the backs of our workers, it should be for our workers. And we should see good wages, good working conditions as an investment in Portland's families, as a way for us to address our housing crisis, as a way for us to meet our goals as a community. And so when we're looking at things from that perspective, and you're leading from a position in which labor is foremost in your mind in these discussions, I think that makes you a better listener. I think that makes you better equipped to deal with some of the issues and some of the tough trade-offs that we have to make.
All right, we have one last question before we go to our audience questions. Mayor Wheeler, transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft are rapidly evolving and creating a new workforce within the gig economy. Thousands of Portland residents driving for these companies are excluded from critical labor laws like minimum wage, overtime, and protections from unfair terminations. PBOT recently implemented a TNC Driver Advisory Committee to give those workers more of a voice. What will you do to ensure TNC drivers and other gig economy workers have a living wage and safe working conditions?
Well, first of all, let's just have a clear understanding of what it is they are doing. The new technology companies are taking the costs that would ordinarily be borne by a company and they're putting them on the taxpayers. So healthcare, retirement, anything else they need to do in order to ensure family security, it's on the TNC drivers. So let's start talking about them as victims in all of this as well. The other thing we need to do is not give licensure and not support companies that come into our market and simply ignore the reality of the wages or the benefits for people in this market. And the TNCs, Airbnbs, and all these other opportunities to basically push the costs onto the public at large, we should do everything we can to restrict it.
Thank you.
Until they support those efforts.
Ozzy, same question.
I'm gonna start with the carrot before I use the stick. There's gonna be a meeting with the TNC directors up front, and I'm gonna let them know point blank. This is not a race to the bottom. Yes, they are externalizing the costs onto society, and if they don't figure it out for themselves, their companies are gonna die. And that's just the way the market works right now. You need to take care of your workers. Second meeting is going to be with some of the representatives of the TNCs that are actually the drivers themselves. They're getting organized already, and I'm going to encourage them to further that journey. Get organized, and let's make sure that you have the best case for your TNC directors. And that's just the beginning. I'm out of time.
Thank you. So we are moving on now to questions from the audience, from the cards that you all turned in earlier. So we're going to stick with the same format. So first question, Sarah. No question tonight has addressed the disability community. One job site accident and anyone can find themselves not able to work and not able to access housing. As mayor, how will you help advocate for the needs of people with disability?
As I've been listening to people in that community tell me what they need, one of the things that they want is universal access in our affordable housing projects. Visibility is high on their list of concerns. So are we making sure that we have enough supply of units in our schemes that they are accessible units? It's something that I hear time and again, that there aren't enough accessible units available. So making sure that we're putting that into our policies, especially when we're funding things with public dollars, will be a priority.
Thank you. Teresa, same question.
So my son has grandma seizures. He's living with a disability right now, and one of the biggest things is that he doesn't want to be on disability, but he can't afford to live a regular life like the rest of us do. He used to, get in car wrecks when he was having seizures and things like that. And so what we need to do as a city is that we need to realize that everybody is necessary for our city to be productive. And we need to build in those safety nets to provide those type of opportunities to people with disabilities that want to work. It's up to us to protect the opportunities and the access for people in our city. And we need to do a better job at it, even tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, this one is directed to you first. ATU is in contract negotiations with TriMet. Their proposal is to eliminate all state-registered apprenticeship programs. Do you approve of this?
No.
If no, what will you do to promote apprenticeship programs and keep them for our future workers?
I will not support any effort to curtail or eliminate apprenticeship programs. I have a long history of working with labor, particularly the trades, but labor generally, on apprenticeship programs and expanding those opportunities. You'll recall we all worked together on a proposal that went to the ballot that would have created funding for a permanent, growing endowment, both for trade membership, job training, and college educations. I put my whole work into that along with you. The voters didn't support it. Little footnote, historical footnote, today that endowment would be worth about $140 million.
Thank you.
Had the public gone for it.
Ozzy, same question, please.
There was an interesting community forum in the last TriMet meeting where there was a room full of people, and there was essentially half of them there concerned about this very issue about the apprenticeship program. That there was going to be a transition or a sunset to the diesel mechanic apprenticeship program. The other half of the room was there saying, stop buying diesel buses. And this is exactly the predicament that we find ourselves in today, when we have to figure out how to adapt workforce into new technologies, and this is real talk. It's not enough just to run to the future. We have to make sure we bring along the communities with us.
Thank you. Teresa, as a resident of East Portland, I would like to know what you know about the challenges and strengths of the East Portland neighborhoods.
Absolutely. My brother lives in East Portland, and I have a couple of nieces and nephews that live over there too. I know you don't have sidewalks. I know that you have streets that aren't maintained. I know that you don't have lights in all the neighborhoods where you should have them. I know that our buses don't go into all the neighborhoods, and that in some of them they only run during certain times of the day. I know that there's not a lot of stuff out there for your children to get into, and I know that there's a lot of things that are happening over there that are being neglected by the city of Portland because we act like you guys are second-class citizens.
Amen.
That's what I know about East Portland.
Mayor Wheeler, same question.
Economic opportunity, jobs, tax fairness, immigration, language barriers, unequal access to resources, including roads, streets, safe sidewalks, what you see is higher rates of unemployment, higher rates of migration, higher rates of displacement, higher rates of death by interactions with automobiles, increased transportation needs, increased public resource needs, and there's also a critical lack of foliage, which also impacts East Portland as well. We actually have programs in place for each and every one of the items that I just mentioned.
Thank you. Ozzy, work through the city of Portland and prosper Portland is in danger of not paying workers prevailing wage. What will you do to compel developers to pay workers according to the area's standards?
The best expenditure of public dollar is on wages. That is the investment the public sector makes in its community. Prevailing wage, to me, is a non-negotiable piece of the conversation if we're talking about public dollars. So, as your mayor, I will defend not just prevailing wage, but worker standards across the board on any expenditure of public dollars.
Sarah, same question?
We need to run towards CBAs, I think, in this city as opposed to running away from them. Under the current administration, what we've seen is a watering down already. I mean, there are a lot of bold claims being made, and I'm seeing bid bundling being talked about. What does it mean for us to raise the threshold instead of lowering it for the CBAs to click in? It's going to be incumbent on us to make sure that we're not opposing things like House Bill 2048, where they were trying to make gains on prevailing wage, and the city of Portland wrote a letter in opposition to that. Oops. We need to think carefully and make sure that we put labor first. It's not an afterthought, and it's not going to be with me, and I'm not going to say oops on behalf of labor.
Thank you. All right, our next question, we'll start with Mayor Wheeler. What comprehensive approach will you take in addressing the houseless issue, including mental health services?
Since I took office, we have, on about 7,000 people a year have actually received prevention services. Last year, about 6,000 people were moved off the streets. Over the last 5 years, we've doubled our shelter capacity. We've made a renewed commitment to permanent supportive housing. We promised 2,000 units, or 850 into it in 1 year. The housing bond, which you entrusted me with, is ahead of the promises that we actually made. We are continuing to commit.
Teresa, same question, please.
Do you mind repeating it for me? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. What comprehensive approach will you take in addressing the houseless issue, including mental health services?
Right, so one of the things that I realized, I live downtown in Northwest Portland, and we have houselessness everywhere, including the bricks and the rocks that were put there by the Department of Transportation. Okay, and so what I do understand is that if I lived outside for, let's say, just 3 days, I would have a mental health crisis. So I can't imagine what's happening to the people that live out there. And then it's hard to imagine what's happening to the people that provide services to the people that need them because they're living outside. We have to have a comprehensive human rights and dignity provision in our city that handles that business right now, because people that are unhoused are not an issue. Those are our unhoused neighbors. The mental health issues that come with that, that is usual and customary if you have to live outside.
Thank you. All right. So that concludes our question time for this evening. We're going to give each of the candidates 30 seconds of closing statements. And actually, can we bump it up to 45? We'll give 45 seconds. And you're closing, because we've got. Thank you.
Why are you censoring the questions?
We're running out of time. I have a hard stop on the time. All right. Are you ready? Okay. I'll set a clock. So Ozzy, you have 45 seconds for closing statements.
Our city needs help. Our city needs our help. It is struggling, and it needs all hands on deck right now. The most important thing the City Hall government can do right now is to tap into the collective power and talent of our city. The governance system we have right now isn't about the power that resides inside of City Hall. It's about the power that resides within the collective talent of the city. Now, I've lived a long life as an architect where my job was to figure out how to take different voices and bring them together to the table and to have a conversation about how we come to a collective solution. And then we went to implement it. That's been a career of mine that has allowed me to see the power of being able to give people a respectful and open space to be able to share their own perspective and let that feed a solution.
Thank you.
I want to do that with the city of Portland. I would love your help.
Sarah?
Thanks again for having me here tonight. The clock's off, so you'll have to let me know when I get close. Okay. So we're facing some serious challenges: climate change, affordability, inequality, and we need a grassroots movement to remedy this. The answers do not lie in city government alone. They lie in organized communities. And I know that labor knows how to organize. As a community organizer, a working mom, an educator, I understand that our power is in organizing. I have created a campaign that has capped contributions at $250, which means that my campaign is powered by working people. Our average donation is $30 and $35. I'm not taking big checks from downtown developers that oppose using union labor in their projects. I'm building a movement that's going to be powered by you. I'm going to need you beside me in City Hall, and we're going to have to work through this just transition together. We can make strategic investments, we can make investments in labor, and we can prosper at the same time, even as we create our sustainable future. Thank you, and I apologize for going over.
My name's Ted Wheeler. I can't really say my name in 45 seconds or less. A lot of you didn't get your questions asked, and I wasn't able to articulate a lot of my answers. I'll be in the parking lot later if people want to have a conversation with me and talk, and I'll answer your questions. Vera Katz was mayor for 12 years. I've been mayor for 3. But I'm proud of the work I've done in that short time. I haven't done any of it alone. I've done it with my council. I've done it with coalitions. I've done it with the community, and I've done it with you in labor around homelessness, housing, shared economic prosperity, making sure that people have a fair shake in this community, making sure we address our environmental issues and our public safety issues. And I want to continue that momentum. That's why I'm seeking a second term. And I'd like to have your support in doing it. Ted Wheeler, see you outside.
That was exactly 45 seconds.
Just for the record again, my name is Teresa Rayford. You can find information about my campaign at teresarayfordformayor.com. In December of 2017, on the 22nd of December, which was my grandmother's birthday, I asked Ted Wheeler to get out of my seat. I asked him to remove himself from my seat because I plan to run for mayor. And the reason that I asked him to get out of our seat is because since 2011, when we were occupying our city and we were making the demands, I've realized that over the last 2 terms that we continue to elect the people that we don't need to lead us, that don't want to lead us, that don't feel the same values that we have. And so it's time to leave that leadership behind. And one of the plans that I have in the administration is to audit our bureaus so that we can bring in new stakeholders that represent labor. Thank you.
And so we'd like to give a big hand to everyone who organized the event and put this together. As well as a big hand to all of you for coming and participating and caring enough to unite together, share your stories, ask some great questions, and thank you so much for being here.
And workers panel, can't forget them.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.